Sadly, he has got COVID, and I'm sure he doesn't mind me saying that. I don't think it's anything to be embarrassed about. But he had been working tirelessly and extended periods. Anyway, Happy New Year and welcome to Show Business, the show that's about business and everything else. And each week we bring you news, views, and one or two clues from the business world. Asian Business Connections aims to connect, support, and promote the Asian and wider communities. And whether you're looking to start a business, have an existing business, or just want to talk business, we can help. We can help. Gosh, 2022. Where's the time gone? Literally, in every sense. It's accelerated at such a degree. I do hope that everybody had a wonderful Christmas, regardless of whether you were celebrating Christmas or not. It's a wonderful time of the year where you get the chance to genuinely switch off, I think, and spend some quality time with friends and family. And yeah, it's been a very interesting period because the schools broke up almost a week before Christmas, I think, is what they done. And in doing so, it meant that others had to family, like parents and such like, with their parenting responsibilities, also took the time off. We actually worked all the way up until sort of the Thursday before, but then everybody took that week off. I'd come in to work, which I was happy doing, not for an extended period, but just to maintain things. And everyone that I've spoken to this week had sort of said, yeah, you know, felt like a really long break, and everybody was particularly happy to come back into this year. Although I must admit, it appears that COVID in its new variant has really impacted so many people. But touch wood, it appears that it isn't as challenging from a health point of view, or doesn't have as big of an impact on people's health as previous variants. That said, it's still particularly important that everybody continues to take all the precautions they can. We continue to maintain wearing face masks and social distancing, and also hand gelling regularly, and just sort of being aware of people around us, and making sure that there's adequate and appropriate ventilation. My good wife had said to me that one of the adverts that was being shown over the Christmas period was ventilate your space, and there was these black dots of the virus, and how opening a window enabled the fresh air to get in, and encouraged any germs to be displaced and dispersed. Yeah, she had said that if she'd seen that advert earlier on, she would have done a lot more of that. So it's particularly cold and fresh in our house now all of the time. So there's always that balance. Anyway, let's kick off the show, and let's see what the wonderful, magical Martha has created for us and produced this morning's show. It's always challenging talking to yourself on radio when you're so used to being here with your partner. And I do miss the days, the odd occasions when Jaff isn't here. But I'm delighted to say that the team from the SME Centre of Excellence are going to be jumping in and out of this show, sharing with us their New Year's resolutions and their plans and what they are sort of hoping to achieve. And what, if any, New Year's resolutions have you made? So let's have a look at the New Year's resolution in a bit more detail. And let me share my screen so we can get the show properly on the road. So I'm hoping that everybody can see, obviously on radio you can't, but certainly in the video you should be able to see what's going on. This is your weekly show business with Jaff and Amar. So New Year's resolutions, interesting. Some good New Year's resolutions for SME owners, so small to medium enterprise or business owners in 2022. Some top tips. So review your business plan. A lot has changed since January 2021. It might be worth revisiting your business plan. And if you want to have a look at your business plan and get some top tips, visit the SME website. So that's SMECOFE website for tips on business model innovation and how you can innovate your business model. Next tip, start exploring automation. Your most valuable resource is your time. Technology is improving rapidly every year. See if you can pass a time-consuming job to an AI or algorithm and get back an hour a week. Imagine getting back an hour a week, 52 hours in a year, nearly sort of 2 and a bit days. You know, it would be wonderful just to get it back if you could automate things. Go green, make the decision to switch all the lights off overnight. Encourage those who can to cycle to work, stop sending out paper bills, or switch to an energy supplier that guarantees reusable energy. There are plenty of ways to get a bit greener in 2022. Next tip, focus on your work-life balance. After nearly 2 years of home and hybrid working, many people are finding it increasingly difficult to keep work and home separate. Small decisions can make a massive difference, whether that's turning your notifications off after 6 p.m., committing to technology-free dinners with your family, or going for a walk every morning. I must admit, this week, we had reconnected with a number of organizations that we're supporting, and part of the challenge is and has been for those that are working at home, the ability or inability that to sort of switch off between it being a 9 to 5. You know, it's almost a myth that a 9 to 5 works, and that's what people do. So it's incredible that that when we are talking to people, they really are constantly on and switched on. So given these mobile phones that we have, everyone everywhere is just sort of always connected, and to disconnect yourself from your phone and from other people is an invaluable thing to consider and do from time to time. one of the things that I'm encouraging everybody that I'm coming across to consider, and a top tip from me personally, is to try and take more of a gratitude attitude, particularly as we're starting to see so many signs everywhere you go. It doesn't matter where you're at. It says, please do not abuse our staff. You know, sort of abusive behavior will not be tolerated, etc., etc., etc. And it just, it almost feels as if the messaging reinforces that negativity. But what type of world do we live in where you have to put up signs to not be abused or to discourage people coming into your pharmacy, your doctor, surgery, hospitals? It is just incredible. It's outrageous that people are abusing those in positions of service, where they're providing support and assistance, whether that's shops, whether that's chemists, whether that's doctors, whether that's hospitals, regardless of whatever it is. Yeah, I think we could all, and we should all, take a little time to reflect. But the more I talk to people, the more I realize how frustrated and angry people are, impatience. You know, everybody wants everything now. And it's a world that we live in where you can literally order something and get it in the next sort of 30 minutes. It's and that level of service then becomes a benchmark for other services. You know, standing in queues, people are like, oh, I'm not standing in a queue. It's like crazy. So one thing that I'm encouraging and asking people to consider is to take more of a gratitude attitude. So what does that mean? Just being grateful to yourself, to those around you, and starting the day on a very positive way. So first thing, as you wake up, if you are going to grab your phone, because it's something that you do, open it up, set a note, and start recording something that you're grateful for. Could be anything. Yeah, a good night's sleep, I'm very grateful for. Or being warm when I've slept, or being warm, having a simple things as having a dressing gown, or being able to turn the light on, or being a heater, having a heater, whatever it is. You know, it doesn't need to be anything sort of taxing on the mind. It just needs to come naturally. But something, just write something down that you're grateful for. That simple one step of thinking positively will immerse you and your start your day in a very positive way. And then throughout the day, consider taking a minute, just 1 minute. And even if you do that once or twice a day, sort of take a minute, sit back, relax, close your eyes, and focus on your breath. There's Apple and various other phones and devices have breathe apps on them. Set a reminder, just a simple reminder regularly throughout the day. My suggestion is 3 or 4 times a day, 1 minute. That's 3 or 4 minutes. That's all I'm suggesting you do. And then at the end of the day, pick up that note that you made in the morning and write something down that made you happy that day. What made you happy? Could have been anything. Could have been watching something on telly. Could have been some meme or however you pronounce it that someone sent you. It could be a WhatsApp message that was witty. It could be literally anything. And those 5 minutes is all I'm suggesting, is all I am prescribing. And you will be astonished how quickly that starts having a positive impact and influence on you in your day. So New Year's resolution, give yourself 5 minutes, just 5 minutes every day to make a difference. Good morning, Ben.
Good morning.
Hey, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, so Ben, thanks for tuning in and dialing in and doing what you're doing. So let's start by introducing yourself. So say who you are, what you do, and why you do it.
So my name is Ben Haynes, and I operate at the SME Centre of Excellence in Ponteland as the marketing strategist. The reason why I do it, I suppose I got into marketing because, well, digital marketing, for my interest in technology, but it also keeps that sort of creative spark alive, which I enjoy. So that's why I do it.
Great. Well, thanks for that. It's always interesting when you ask someone why they do something. Because it's like it solicits a total different answer.
Yeah, and I think sometimes you never really think about it either in terms of why.
Yeah, well, lots of people just do stuff, don't they? And they go, I'm just doing it. Well, that's my job, or that's my life, or I'm going to the gym. Why are you going to the gym? Just because I think I should.
Yeah, you've got to enjoy it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you've got to understand why you're doing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So New Year's resolutions, Ben, what do you think about them?
I don't do them.
All right, okay. So why not?
I suppose it goes back to what we just said about the why. You've got to have a real reason behind something. I don't think it's strong enough to just say, oh, well, it's now a new year, I'm going to do something. That you've got to have a real reason to why you're doing it. So whether it's the typical getting into shape, if you really wanted to do it, you would start today.
Yeah, and I think that's a critical point, isn't it? You shouldn't need an excuse to do something.
Exactly that.
And people then put off things as well, to sort of until a particular time.
Yeah. I mean, I just seen something the other day with regards to, I think it was Daniel Craig's trainer, and he said to just find, it's not just these people are dedicating their lives to changing the way they look to be able to play a part. And this guy who trains is a Royal Marine or something along them lines. And he said that you've still got to be able to enjoy it. So whether it's thinking back to when you were a kid and getting involved with whether it was rugby or football, just finding a way to achieve something, but making sure that you enjoy it as well.
Great point. Oh, good morning, Dan. Talking about
morning. Hello.
Daniel Craig, I think, because not quite. But Dan, do you want to start off by saying who you are, what you do, and why you do it?
I'd love to, Amar. Hello, everyone. My name is Dan Newton, and I've recently joined up with Amar and the team at the SME Centre of Excellence, helping Amar with many different things. My title is Customer Experience Director, and I'm aiming to really try to tie together seamlessly and build goals for our customers and ourselves to achieve in this year, in 2022, and really improve as much as we can around all things SME, with all the different parts of the moving mechanism that is the SME Centre of Excellence, and also with our customers. We've got some exciting things planned this year, lots of stuff to look forward to. We've got some top secret confidential stuff that I can't talk about, but very exciting stuff that's coming, that's going to be very interesting for later in the year. We're talking about learning experiences, in particular with regard to enterprise and with entrepreneurship.
You didn't answer the why, Dan, I don't think, Ben, did he?
The why of
why did you get into sort of branding, marketing? What's your why?
To be honest with you, I have always loved the visual part of life, if you like. From a very early age, I was very keen and interested in drawing and art and design, and really, it was the only thing that did interest me. I was reasonably good at it, and I think as a youngster, if you're pushed a little bit to do certain things, it's almost like you're pushing on an open door if a child enjoys something. So I was sort of led down that route and encouraged to do it more and more. You know, I wasn't probably the most academic. I can handle numbers reasonably well. You know, I got good results in maths and stuff in English at school, but art and design was really it was part of my fabric as a human being. And that one thing just led to another. I ended up doing a degree in product design, and that led me into a role working for a company actually in Taiwan many years ago, an American company at the time, but in Asia. Fantastic experience. And
did you go and live and work in Taiwan then, Dan?
Yes, I did. I worked there for about 4 years,
Right.
and I actually got to the position of creative director at a very young age,
Right.
which was quite good in a marketing and branding agency. I was funny enough. I was looking at their website yesterday, and my old boss has recently, I believe, sold the company. He's now an advisor. But you know, they've got a team of about 70 people there. When I worked there was basically 5 of us. So that business was really good. But that was really my inception to the commercial world, if you like. And I then started to work for many brands, in particular in the sporting goods and lifestyle brands like New Balance and Adidas. I worked for outdoor brands. I've worked for Clark's, was the last big company that I worked for. So a lot of corporate stuff in there, and really a lot of those roles took me away from the stuff that I loved, which was, you know, the branding and the visual stuff, and you know, got involved with a lot of different projects, whether it was logistics or, you know, a customer journey or whatever it may be. But really, I think at the core of everything, it's still something that I'm very passionate about. And obviously, you build on your experiences and your passion and develop yourself that way.
Great story. I think at one point, Dan, everything was made in Taiwan, wasn't it?
It's funny you should say that, because I can remember growing up and our household was full of things that were made in Taiwan. And I had no idea where Taiwan was. It was just like, you know, it could have been Timbuktu, it could have been anywhere. It was like a mythical place.
Yeah.
And I think they were really one of the tiger economies of Asia. Bit of a renegade province of China, you know, and sort of a lot of Japanese influence. And really, when I went there, they were moving out of the sort of more low-tech industries like footwear and clothing, and they were moving into more high-tech stuff. So the first things would be things like bikes and giant bicycles and specialized bicycles were out of Taiwan, and then laptop computers and desktop computers, you know, and sort of, and then into phones and things like that. But yeah, I can remember our house in the you know, sort of late 70s and 80s, and it was just full of things that were made in Taiwan, and some of them worked really well and some of them didn't work very well.
I mean, that was it, wasn't it? It was like a bit like you. Everything that I can recall was made in Taiwan. You know, as in literally everything was made in Taiwan. I was like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And then it clearly, obviously shifted from Taiwan to China.
Yeah.
And then everything was made in China. But it's not something that I've ever considered, as in, you know, why and how did that happen?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of it, Amar, that shift in that movement, if you like. I can remember going to footwear factories in the late 90s and early 2000s, and I think a lot of it was centered around people wanting to try and find cheaper labor. So At that time, China hadn't firmly opened their doors, really. I mean, it was, you know, it was the handback of Hong Kong, which I think was in '97. And I think from that point, it really sort of started to ramp up. But I can remember going to China and traveling along these 5-lane motorways or freeways, and I'd be the only car on it. And there'd be some little old lady with a cart and a horse and maybe the odd moped here and there. And if you go back to the same place these days, you're gridlocked with cars bumper to bumper because the wealth has accelerated. The labor rates and the pay rates and everything. And China's essentially becoming, for all intents and purposes, the first world country. Even outside of the big metropolises of Beijing and Shanghai and those areas, you've got to go really into the center of China now to get, the sort of really sort of cultural thing, the mythical world of China in terms of how that is now. But yeah, China's moved into the high-tech world now. We know that like sort of all Apple's products are made there. People are now pushing into other areas like Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam, parts of Africa to produce products. So I guess with it, there's a sense of buoyancy that these places will also develop as well, and generate some good growth for their national incomes.
Amazing. So Dan, thinking about marketing, then just sort of touching upon marketing and giving some advice and some top tips to sort of some of our listeners and our viewers. What type of things would you suggest or people should be looking out for? Ben, you first.
I think something that I've been looking at recently is this idea of less is more. So focusing on one idea, and actually a lot of the sort of the areas I've looked at is sort of related to big corporates. So it's a completely different world compared to the smaller businesses. But rather than being strung up on all these different offerings that you may have, maybe it's a case of focusing in on what your brand stands for, and just making sure that you echo that point. And if we're going back to the New Year's resolutions, if that's something that you want to focus on this year, I think it would be a good starting point actually to, surround your marketing strategy based on that one single focus rather than becoming distracted by all the different avenues.
Great point. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning, guys. How's everybody?
Yeah, great. Thanks for tuning in and joining us. Do you want to, before I then come and ask Dan to answer that question, did you want to introduce yourself, Chris, who you are, what you do, and why you do it?
Yeah, sure. So to be fair, I probably wear a few different hats, but I am operations director at the SME Centre of Excellence. So working with the other guys on the call and making sure that the stuff that we do happens effectively and has the right impact and output. I'm also involved, obviously, with the Asian Business Connections charity, and then I'm involved with a few other sort of early stage businesses as well. Why do I do it? Because I like having an impact, and I like seeing businesses and individuals succeed ultimately.
Wonderful. No, thank you. Thanks for that. So Dan, that question to you, please.
Yeah, I mean, I think sort of really at the core of things, when I try and talk to people about brand, and they immediately go, "Well, what do you mean, my logo and my little icon or whatever it is?" And actually, that on the surface of it is the recognizable part of a brand. But if you really think about brands and household brands or sporting brands or TV companies or technology companies, everybody has got brands that they have an affinity with. And I think those brands have done a good job of striking an emotional bond with their consumer, and that's what gets repeat business after all. So my sort of key learnings and things that I want to try and share with smaller businesses and with bigger businesses and within the SMEs, that actually the way that your brand touches people is important. And that's not just your logo and your little fancy icon. It's about the whole service that you provide and the whole way that you speak to people. It's about your tone of voice. It's about your empathy. It's about your service levels. It's about your punctuality. You know, it's really it's the whole 360 degree of what you are as a company. And I think that those things are very important, and you need to just be mindful really in terms of how you're expressing yourself and how you're touching your consumers, because it makes a big difference, and they will notice. Consumers are very savvy, and they will notice anything that looks a little bit awry. So that would be my key thing, is to probably try to look at the things that fascinate me about brands and the brands that have touched me, and try and understand and work out what it is that they've done that's special.
I think you know, that value point that you're making, Dan, is the critical one, isn't it? As in value and connection. All of us now genuinely want and tend to deal with brands that we feel an affinity or a connection with, and you welcome and you value. You know, as in it's certainly something that we as a collective, all of us, have sort of said, what is it that we want people to experience as they come to the SME Centre of Excellence? You know, what type of things can we emotively connect with, and how, and really, it's, you know, one of the top tips I would give anyone is tell a story, tell an authentic story, not a jackanory, you know, but because people find out if you talk nonsense or rubbish and call you out. You live in a very brutal environment now as a business, or even as an individual. You know, everyone is just feels so comfortable to be offensive, and sadly, it's a case of whether someone's just being outright rude and you know, being offensive without there being any merit in it. It's still kind of a negative impact on it.
Absolutely, Amar. I think you picked up on one of the key words that you said there, was authenticity, and that's I think that's a big part of the SME, to be honest, in terms of you know, it does what it says on the tin, and that's what it's aspiring to do, and it's aspiring to educate and support and, you know, build a relationship within the community, within the Northeast, within, you know, the places that we meet people and that we work, the people that we work with. You have to be authentic. You know, it's a massive part of the draw, I think. And you know, a lot of the times, I think that you know, some of the conversations that we'll have with people aren't necessarily, you know, it's not always just trying to make money out of things or make a profit out of things. It's that little bit of human interaction and advice and support. You know, that's kind of like nothing, if you like. That's something that I think trusted brands, they give away stuff. You know, it's not just about take. And I think that's an important message to remember.
Yeah, I mean, I must admit, we as an organisation create a lot of collateral resource, what I'd consider to be really valuable. And it's on our websites, we send it out via newsletters, you know, and it's like, if the people who take the time to read it go, wow, I didn't know. You know, I didn't know about this. And it's like you've just shared some insights and some advice that consultants or, you know, other professionals would charge hundreds, if not thousands of pounds for.
Yeah.
And we do that because we genuinely want to help people. I think the other thing about our organization is if we can't help someone, we're quite upfront about it. And I think that's equally as important as how you can help someone. I think it's critical, is the thing. I mean, Chris, as sort of looking after operations and leading some of the things. So just talk us through, you led and delivered a peer network workshop yesterday, Chris, which was fantastic. Tell us a little bit more about peer networks and what it's all about and what value that brings.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, peer networks, is based around the peer group or mastermind model, which organisations like Vistage do very well on a commercial basis across the UK. But the peer group that we kicked off yesterday, we've got a good number of businesses in there. So there's between 10 and 12 businesses that we've got coming in there. And ultimately, it's to leverage the fact that actually people learn potentially most effectively from peers and being part of a group, being able to share their challenges and get input from others that are maybe facing similar challenges, but not always in the same sector. I think if you boil a lot of challenges down that businesses face, there's often the same sort of 3 or 4 things that come out. The specifics are very different. We had businesses, organizations on the peer group yesterday that are doing stuff in the third sector. But then we had other businesses that are doing stuff commercially in the private sector. But if you actually look really deeply into what their challenges are, well, it's always the same things. It's always finances and being able to keep the business running effectively from a financial perspective. It's people. So whether that's being able to recruit, retain, upskill their people, and particularly at the moment when we've got this sort of hybrid model of some people working from home, some people being in the office and that kind of stuff. And then actually it's from a business leader's perspective, it's wellness and overall holistic health. So that's, we talked, a couple of the people yesterday raised issues around burnout and the fact that the lines have become blurred between home and work over the course of the last couple of years. And that's put added pressure on them. That's put added weight on their shoulders. And that's causing them to be fatigued, worn out physically, but also mentally. And that makes them less productive as people within their organizations as leaders then as well. So that was one of the aspects that we talked about. So it's really, harnessing the power of that group, of the mastermind, of many heads being better than one, and addressing some of these challenges, talking through and trying to just find ways and means of addressing them and different tactics to maybe overcome them and learning from each other. So it was a really positive, uplifting session that we had yesterday.
Amazing, good. So what are the things, Ben, what support can the SME Centre of Excellence offer people?
Well, there's a wide array, really, in terms of we cover all aspects of the back office of a small to medium enterprise business. So that could include anything such as human resources, accountancy, web design, marketing, as we spoke on today. But even the smaller aspects, so, virtual and registered offices. So we actually help businesses develop a more professional presence, whether that's virtually or if you want to actually set up your address on Company's House at our address in Ponteland.
Yeah, so no, thanks for that. And just, that's a great array of services, as you say, but they're all linked together, aren't they? As in, it's a case of, and lots of individuals will be thinking about, I want to set up a business, or I want to set up something outside of my job, or actually, given the way that the environment is, there's been a lot of people who have simply given up their jobs over the last sort of year or so as a consequence of COVID, and are now moving towards the passion economy. And I suppose people have sort of, without any fit and proper consideration, looked online, spoke to someone. Oh, it's dead easy to set up a business. I'll just set it up at home. I'll register a company. It's £13. I'll just follow this process. I'll self-prescribe things, not realizing that actually a lot of properties, residential properties, are restricted from trades. So things to consider, depend if you're making something at home, the local authorities, there's regulation, legislation, there's a whole host of consideration that you need to sort of satisfy. There's also things like your home insurance potentially becomes void if you're running or doing anything from home. There's things like council tax. Does that turn into rates if you're using part of your property for trades? There's so many different considerations that lots of people naively don't think about. And having a sort of a serviced or a registered office allows you to have a demarcation, doesn't it? It sort of that's like, I'm running that business from there, and plus, might not necessarily, if you're running a business from home, you might not necessarily want everybody to have your address at home, because let's not be sort of naive to the fact that occasionally someone might not be happy with your service. The last thing you want is someone knocking on your door because it's like, oh well, whatever that is. At least if you've got a registered or a serviced office address, they're coming to a business centre. Plus, it's professional, right? So there's so many considerations, and not only can you start with a serviced office type of arrangement or a registered office arrangement, you can then get sort of the SME team to look after all of your back office, can't you? So it's like your accounts, all of the things that people go, I don't really want to do that, or I'm no good at websites, or I'm no good at marketing, or I'm no good at the accounting or the legal stuff. I just want someone else that I trust, who's credible, who's supported thousands of others over the years.
Absolutely. And I think one of the other important things is, we're very keen to just sit down with individuals or even businesses that have already started and just understand where the weaknesses lie, because actually a lot of people don't understand what support they need. Obviously, I've just listed quite a lot there. So it's about how we can join that together. And one of the hardest things to do is to actually just get started. So, why not have a conversation with ourselves just to try and understand where you're at now and where you need to be?
Absolutely, absolutely. Right, well, I'm going to hand over to Chris to continue the facilitation and the interrogation. And continue the radio show. So it's because it's turned into literally show business, hasn't it? It's a show about business, and we're talking about all of these businesses. So type of things that I think you might want to share, Ben, Dan, Chris, is what type of programs are coming up. I mean, if you're based in Tees Valley, the Pitch Perfect program is incredible. It's a residential as well, so you're going to stay over 2 days of intense support in a hotel. There's with all of the wraparound support and everything else, something that's never been done before. Then thinking about the various other programs and such like, and just some of the exciting stuff that's going on. There's so much great stuff and support, isn't there?
Yeah.
So
It really is.
I'm going to disappear and let Chris become the host with the most, I think, is what I'll do. So until next week, listeners and viewers, it's a goodbye from me, but going to leave it in the capable hands of Chris, Dan and Ben. We're just going to talk each for a minute. It's like a tag team type of thing, and talk about a subject. It's like, whose line is it anyway? Anyway, take care.
Thanks, Emma.
Thanks, Emma.
Yeah, so just building on what Emma said there, really around the Pitch Perfect program for businesses in Tees Valley. So that's essentially an investor readiness program. So businesses that are at that point where they are starting to think about or look for investment from externally. And we've run these very successfully in the past. We ran a great program with around 10 to 12 businesses last year. And I don't know if you guys watched Dragon's Den last night at all. New series of Dragon's Den kicked off.
I did watch it, yeah.
But it was quite good, actually. But essentially, the whole program culminates in a bit of a Dragon's Den where we pull together, both institutional and private or angel investors into a physical room or onto a Zoom call, and businesses get the opportunity to do the whole Dragon's Den thing and pitch to them, to answer questions and to ask for money. And I think if businesses are thinking about how do they scale, how do they grow, how do they potentially turbocharge what they want to do in 2022, well, often the biggest barrier to being able to do those activities can be funding. How do you make sure that you can afford these things? And actually, I had a great call earlier in the week with a County Durham based business that's scaling at the moment and is looking for some investment. And what they were talking about was bringing in what they called smart money, which essentially is individual investors who, yes, can bring some capital to the business, but also can bring some knowledge, expertise, or insight into the business beyond just the financial aspect of things. So maybe they can open some doors with customers that business wants to get in with. Maybe they can help them to develop a marketing strategy, and looking for that kind of thing. So there's more than just the financial aspect to it. But what did you enjoy the Dragon's Den last night, Dan?
I did. I think that you always get a little bit of a mixed bag on there, and there was some high highs and there were some low lows in terms of. I don't know if you saw the guy with the magnetic mini torch key ring.
I don't think I saw that bit. No.
It kind of. I guess that one, he sort of got a bit laughed out of the room to a degree. It became a little bit of a. It was quite painful at first, but I think he took it on the chin in the end, in the sense that actually what he created was basically a little torch on a key ring. Which
brilliant. I've actually got a torch on my key ring.
I don't know if it was as expensive as his, because his retails were $23.99.
Oh wow.
I think the Dragons just saw the funny side of that and asked him, have you got any other inventions? And I think his other invention was a small pen. So it was like a pen that was half the size of a normal pen.
Brilliant.
You wonder whether or not more coming.
Kind of like you used to get from Argos.
Yeah, it's like the one, I guess, the ones that you get in the lottery, like a small pen. So yeah, that was it was a bit funny. But then mostly speaking, the lady with the invisible hair extensions. And how she actually had a business, but she hadn't actually thought about the business. And I thought it was a bit of a shame, really, because from an entrepreneurial perspective, she said herself that she felt very lonely, and she just wanted somebody to be with her. From a guidance perspective, and I think that's perhaps sort of at the heart of some of the subject matter that we're talking about right now, is that with peer networks and with the SME and with business in general, being an entrepreneur or being somebody, and they said it last night, it can be a lonely place to be. It can be a very tough place to be, especially at important junctures in your business evolution, where you're looking to scale or where you're looking to grow. An half an hour conversation with somebody at the SME on a specific subject matter without even putting your hand in your pocket to pay anything may bring out the conversation that you need to happen to make your business take the next steps it needs to take.
Yes. Yeah. I think one of my favorite sayings is that you don't know what you don't know. which, you know, you can just apply to so many things in life, but in particular in business, you know, yes, to some extent, it's so easy to create a business nowadays. And it's very much, I think that entrepreneurship is very much pushed by social media and that kind of thing as a sort of glamorous route or whatever. But actually, there's a lot, if you've never set up a business before, there's a lot of hard yards that you have to do and sort of, like you said before, Ben, that, you know, the back office elements of stuff that you need to do that you are legally required to do if you're director of the company, that actually you may not even realize. And so, like you say, I think just getting that expert insight into, you know, what are those things, and actually, you know, are you going to be up to the task of submitting your company accounts every year, or, you know, doing your confirmation statements on Companies House, and what do these things actually mean, and what do they involve? There's a lot of stuff there that people maybe you know, don't necessarily see on the sort of glossy Instagram pictures, that's part of the day-to-day part of, you know, aspect of running a business, I think.
It's actually really hard to sort of critically assess yourself as well, isn't it? It's sort of it's always easier, I think, sometimes to just have a fresh outlook from someone else, and just try to understand where you're at now, and sort of what you need to get to the place that you're heading, you know, because again, there's another saying that I really like, in the sense of what got you here won't get you there. So if you want to get somewhere else, you're going to have to change some aspects. And I think sometimes getting someone else's viewpoint on something is a great starting point.
Yeah, definitely. The other one that I liked was the first one that was on last night, was the cheese business, that did get some investment and seemed to have something with that business. But even for those guys, you know, they were getting challenged around certain aspects, and they were running, you know, from the outside what looks like a reasonably successful, reasonably fast growing business. Basically, it was an app that you could order British cheeses through and have a subscription service and that kind of stuff. But there were certain aspects, you know, of their business that they clearly maybe hadn't thought deeply into, or, you know, I think when they got asked about the biggest risk to their business, they ended up sort of probably working it out on their feet as to what their biggest risk was, which was around their supply chain of British farmers. But it became obvious quite quickly that they hadn't necessarily really delved into that and how that was going to impact them and what they could do to address that and things. The other thing that stood out for me was, and it comes back to some of the stuff that you were talking about just before, Dan, but was the ethics of the business. So I hadn't properly appreciated quite how ethical Deborah Meaden is in her investment approach. But the reason she didn't invest in that business was because of the implications of her being involved with something that's heavily reliant on the dairy industry in the UK, which, you know, there's maybe aspects to that aren't quite as you know, as clearly as ethical as she was looking for businesses to have. But that is, you know, that's part of the story of the business, isn't it? You know, where are you getting your stuff from? Who are you dealing with? Who are you working with? And I think nowadays there's nowhere for businesses to hide. If they are doing something that's maybe improper or unethical, you know, it will come out. Chances are, you know, and there really is nowhere for businesses to hide anymore.
No, I think you're right, Chris, and I think it's certainly with big corporate business, they're very much plunged into the spotlight as soon as anything is uncovered. You know, there's whistleblowers left, right, and centre, and what a lot of those businesses are actually doing nowadays is they're employing whole teams of people to mitigate risk, so that they're constantly proactively looking at the world and the viewpoints of people to understand how that can affect their business. So everything you talked about, from, you know, ethically sourced products, sustainability, you know, race, religion, gender, there's a huge mountain to climb in terms of being proactive about managing the risk that can be created through certain actions that you undertake during your business. And I think that, you know, sort of as the SME stands, we are lucky to have the experienced people that work with us in terms of the advisory side of things that we have, and the people that we can rely on to understand a whole host of initiatives in that area. But you're right, it's a daunting aspect of doing business. I think Deborah Meaden, in terms of where she stood on it, it was almost like, this is a risk that I can't afford to take, even if you've got things sewn up and it isn't a risk, it feels like it's a risk. And she's a lady who's extremely well educated and extremely experienced, and she could feel that. So very interesting to see.
Definitely. Cool. So last couple of minutes before we go, guys. I don't know if you already talked about this, but has anybody got any New Year's resolutions?
I did sort of touch on this slightly if I'm out at the start.
Okay.
I'd sort of said that I don't really do New Year's resolutions just because I don't think it's enough to stand behind the reason why you're doing it. I think you've really got to want to do something, and if you do want to do something, you'll do it today.
Yes. Yeah. I saw a post on LinkedIn by somebody the other day that was talking about, actually there's about 40 odd days through the year that you could use as sort of fresh triggers to drive action rather than just relying on the 1st of January. It's saying like the first day back from your holidays, first Monday of the week, first day of the month, whatever sort of anchor point you need to use as an individual to just give you that boost. I mean, I know for me, I really enjoyed my break over the holidays and stuff, but I was raring to go when I came back in on Tuesday. And actually this week we've been just flat out again, very much hit the ground running within the SME. But I did probably feel a little boost after having a break and coming back and thinking, well, it's a new year and stuff. What about you, Dan? Do you subscribe to
Spice FM 98.8 FM?
Travelling abroad from today will be made easier thanks to no pre-departure tests or mandatory day 2 PCR tests. There's still concern, though, about going abroad